Hi everyone, this is Ekaterina. So we're in week 7 of my journey to become a counselor, and today I'll be telling you about my very last lesson, which I will certainly say was by far the most interesting lesson I had so far. And it's because we got to actually practice for the very first time what it would feel to carry out a full sort of counseling session with our clients. So initially when I heard about it from our teacher, I thought, well, isn't it a bit early for week 7, considering this is our first year kind of our studies, where we haven't even done 1/3 of the first year, and obviously there's 3 more years to go, and we're already doing the actual practical sessions. But at the same time, I would say, I guess it also made sense so that people could get more experience early on and maybe even see if they're actually suited for such a role of a helper or a counselor. Because maybe for some people they will recognize early on that maybe they are not comfortable with this one-to-one interaction with the clients, and for other people it can be actually a good reassurance that they're on the correct pathway. But nonetheless, I think everyone in our group were a bit nervous when they heard about this. So today I'll tell you how did it go and what sort of rules we had for this session, and obviously just my own personal experience and my own kind of outcomes from this session and the things I want to definitely work on. So as I said, we've been asked this lesson to try for the first time to imitate how it will be to have a client coming to the very first counseling session. Now, to do this exercise, our group has been split in smaller groups of 3 people. And you might wonder why 3 people, because usually counseling is all one-to-one. There's client, there's the counselor. But actually, as we will be doing more practice in the future, especially in the level 4 and level 5 certificate, this is where we'll have to do, I believe, 100 hours of practice while being supervised. So obviously it's not the sort of job you start straight away after you finish your degree. You actually need to get practical hours, just like doctors do or nurses do. And at that time you will be either supervised by somebody more experienced, or you will have somebody you can constantly kind of refer to for advice. So it's very common to get a person who is observing your practices, and that's why we had 3 people. So we had a client, a counselor, and an observer. So we've been asked to do very short kind of versions of the counseling, just about 20 minutes each. Now, typical counseling session, I would say, takes maybe 45-50 minutes. It really depends on the counselor and what you have agreed at the beginning. But we certainly didn't start with like a full 50-minute session. Instead, we did 20 minutes. And actually, for the very first time, even 20 minutes felt like a very long time. And as we will continue with this program, we will be practicing longer and longer sessions. So I think next year it will be already 30 minutes, and I guess in level 4 or level 5 we'll go to the full-time 50 minutes, 1 hour sessions. So we were asked to do 3 sessions of counseling during our lesson, and this would allow everyone to try themselves in the role of the skilled helper or counselor, a client, and an observer. And considering our lesson usually takes 3 hours, we thought we had plenty of time, but there were additional rules to this exercise. First of all of those practices had to be recorded. And again, when people heard about this, the fact that we will be actually recorded, I would say quite a lot of the students felt a bit uncomfortable. And I guess here's where I was actually feeling quite all right, because after doing this channel for 7 weeks, I'm quite now okay with being on the camera. I mean, I actually have to look into the camera, and during the practices in our lesson, we didn't have to do that. We were talking to one another and the camera was on the side. So I was actually quite comfortable with that part, surprisingly. I don't think it would have been the same if I've done it 2 months ago, before this channel existed. I was certainly very nervous about my very first couple of videos, I would say. But yes, I guess here it is where my YouTube channel actually helped me quite a bit. So for those who didn't want to be recorded on the camera, they could just record themselves with the audio. But truthfully, in our team, we agreed to actually record ourselves on the camera because we wanted to also observe the body language. And I think it was a great decision because in the end, when I was rewatching the videos, this is the part I probably enjoyed the most, actually seeing how people open up during the conversation or close down when the questions were maybe not the most appropriate. And I'll tell you a bit about this more later on. So yes, so our group had to be recorded. So each of these 20-minute sessions were recorded separately. And also after each of those sessions, we had to give each other feedback. So the counselor or the skilled helper person had to feedback on themselves. Then also the client would need to feedback to the counselor, about how they felt, were they feeling relaxed, did they enjoy the session, did they think they were asked the right questions? And finally, the observer then could give their feedback as well. And we were given additional 10 minutes for that, but kind of checking the videos later on, I realized we always used more than 10 minutes just because there was actually so much to share. Just from that 20-minute session, everyone, we definitely spotted the same things, but there were also things that only maybe one of us have spotted throughout the session. Most often, I would say the observers had the best feedback. So even after this just one lesson, I would say I do recognize the benefits of having an observer when you're practicing the counseling skills for the first time. So yeah, so how did the actual sessions go? So I've heard about this exercise before, and in a way we were given a bit of a notice with regards to, this is coming, get prepared. So therefore from my side, I decided to prepare as much as I could. And again, you might wonder, how can you prepare for any client? Everyone has a different story. You don't know whether they will come with a problem with a relationship or work or stress or something else. Well, because today's exercise was mostly focused on the very, very first session with the client. As I mentioned in my previous videos, there is a structure that you have to follow when you meet the client for the very first time. So you have to have the beginning part, the little bridge when you kind of redirect the attention to the client, the middle part where the actual conversation is happening and you're finding more about the client's needs and issues, and then the ending part. So with regards to the beginning and the ending parts, those are kind of the parts which you can prepare a little bit, especially if you're like myself doing it for the very first time. And I know as the time passes, definitely this becomes more natural. But as it was, again, the very first time, so I've decided to kind of write down everything that I thought I should mention to the client in the beginning part specifically, and pretty much memorize it. I really actually practiced my speech at home before this exercise, just to make sure that I covered all the crucial parts, such as coverage of the contract, obviously introductions, making sure we're clear on the boundaries, the rules about booking, cancellation policy. I've tried to add a part about the COVID considerations and that we could do sessions online. And at each point, I try to clarify whether the client were comfortable with what we've discussed and whether they had any additional questions. And also in the end of the session, I've closed quite nicely, I would say, because again, I prepared my speech. And I just made sure that we finished our conversation on a very positive note. So from the feedback I got from the observer and the client, they actually indicated that they really liked those two parts. So practice makes it better, I would say. But at the same time, watching now back at my video, which I am sorry, but I cannot share on this channel. Obviously, my colleagues, the other students, they have shared something very private and sensitive during the sessions. We did use our own personal examples. We didn't use the scenarios that were available for the session, but everyone in our group decided to actually bring up as a client a real topic or real issue they have. So for that reason, yes, I won't be going too much into detail. Obviously, I can't really share too much information on this. But still, I would say when I was playing the role of the skilled helper, I can, and now rewatching that video, that recording, it was really interesting to see that my body language changed in the middle section of this practice. Because when I was doing the introduction, I looked relaxed. I knew what I was doing. I've learned my script. I was nodding. I was smiling. I had a really good eye contact with my client. I was giving them time to answer my questions. I would say I was really happy with my first try with regards to those two parts. But when it went into the middle section, this is obviously the kind of unknown territory. I've kind of expected maybe some of the questions I'll be asking, but I wasn't certain what topic my client will bring and obviously what sort of questions I'll have to use. And truthfully, because even though it is just a practice session and it is for us to get more comfortable with this role and obviously use as many skills as we can, different kind of questions, open questions, closed questions, paraphrasing, summarizing, reflection, use of silence. There's so many to kind of keep in your mind when you're doing it for the first time, and you're also realizing that you're being filmed and this recording will be shared with our teacher and the external markers. And it will be part of our qualification because we will also have to submit a report with our reflections. So it's not just casual practice. This is actually going to be marked. This will determine if we will get our first certificate, the level 2 one. So I think because of that, at the back of my mind, I was constantly thinking about making sure that I show all those counseling skills that we've been learning in the first 6 weeks. And I think you can tell it from the recording because my face definitely changed and I was more concentrated. They were a bit less smiling, I would say. There was still good body language and I was still using the Solar model. And for those of you who don't know what the Solar model is, it is a sort of sitting position model that is recommended for counselors. And it's all about sitting with your feet untangled, so it's kind of very comfortable open position. Generally the counselors will lean a little bit towards the client, again just to appear more listening, more interested. You need to be conscious about what your hands are doing, so I'm generally doing quite a lot with my hands, but I think it's all right. I haven't checked with my teacher yet if there's a problem with that. But certainly the counselor cannot be sitting like this or with their hands tangled. So there are some rules with regards to the things you cannot do. And then a Solar model also means that you need to maintain an eye contact with the client, but not to really stare so that it's comfortable. And most importantly, just feel relaxed so that the client is not getting that sort of kind of tense feeling from the counselor. So from my experience, I think I was still maintaining that Solar model, but my face expression has changed a little bit in the middle session as I was more concentrated on what the client was saying and what I was supposed to ask them. But I'm glad I have that recording because I don't think I recognized that myself as we're doing the practice, and it was only thanks to me rewatching the video that I realized like, oh, my face expression actually changed. And it wasn't just me, the other two students who were also practicing the role of the counselor, they all told me that they struggled with some part of Solar model. So for me, probably keeping the legs untangled, like not putting one leg on over another, this is right now the hardest habit to break. For them, they struggle with the hands. So one of the students were holding them close all the time like this. The other one, knowing that this is probably going to be an issue, actually opened them up, but it felt a bit unnatural. So I think all of us decided we have to work on our Solar model. And I guess some of the other things I've noticed from the video, and those are the things I want to work on. And again, it was really great that even from this very short practice, I already noted some of the areas of improvement that I need. And I'll say the biggest one is to accept silence. Now, I always thought that I was comfortable with silence, but watching the video, I realized it's not so much about the comfort, but I was not letting the silence to happen. So whenever the client would go quiet, I had a question ready and I would ask it straight away. On the other hand, another student, she actually displayed the amazing skills of keeping that pose and that silence. And I think I'll do a separate topic, maybe in the upcoming videos, about different types of silences. Something, again, we've been explained in the lesson. And it was very interesting to hear that, yeah, silence can be different. And as a skilled helper, a counselor, you need to recognize which silence you're actually facing in that particular moment with your client. So in my case, I guess I was not really good with those, and I was just trying to fill the silence. And I asked way too many questions, and most of them were closed questions, which maybe are all right for the very first session with your client when you're trying to get that story, the clarification. However, certainly they're not really opening up the conversation that well, which is maybe why I had to use so many of them. And watching the other group practicing, I realized that certainly if you just stay quiet for a little bit when the client finished their sentence, sometimes it actually triggers the client to continue. So that's something I'll be working on. And some other little things I picked up, parts that I would like to add into my introduction. For example, making sure that the client actually signs the contract and that they're very much comfortable with the counselor taking notes. Now, again, if you ever do counseling, you might notice that the counselor can take notes during the sessions. Mine did in the past, and I've been informed that they are kept securely and they will be not disclosed to other people without my knowledge. But that's the little things I forgot in my introduction, and I would say at this moment it's probably not the biggest issue for me. And another part that I kind of am proud of, and I think I need to reflect more on, is the fact that when I was doing my practice and my client has shared her concern, now without going too much into detail, I would say that it was mostly about not being confident in yourself and not really being comfortable making your own decisions in life. And this is a topic that I struggled in the past as well, and maybe I still have that a little bit, but certainly it's a topic that I'm familiar with. Now, sometimes it's good for the counselors to have a similar experience to the client because then they can relate. It's easier to then apply empathy. However, at the same time, we all realize in our group that being able to relate to the client can actually make it harder for the counselor to remain impartial. Because if you know what sort of reasons in your life caused that concern, you might start to wonder, well, maybe that client is having the same problem, let me have a look. And this is what happened in my case, as the client was telling me the story, and from my experience, I know that my problems came from my childhood and my relationship with my parents. So throughout our conversation, I also asked her to tell me more about her relationship with the parents and how her childhood went. And in the end, we did come to a very clear message, sort of a goal that we wanted to achieve in our counseling sessions with regards to building that confidence and maybe working on the decision-making skills. And the client was really happy with the fact that we were able to summarize all her concerns in that one single sentence, and then kind of make a plan for the next sessions, how we're going to look further into it, explore it, and maybe see what little changes can be done in life to become more comfortable with making those important life decisions. So the client's feedback was very positive about this particular aspect, the fact that we were able to come to that core issue. But I would say in the back of my mind, I wonder if we were able to come to this only because I was able to relate to it and kind of navigate the questions toward that issue. And as I mentioned before, for counseling, it's very important to really focus the questions on the client and only ask them for the benefits of the client. So therefore, I just need to be very careful with that. And again, I guess I'm happy that I got this insight straight away from my very first experience, and this is something now I'm aware of and need to work on. But to sum up, I would definitely say it was the best session so far, because even though we were not presenting with a new material on counseling as a topic, but there were quite a few things that I wanted to learn from other students, because I really liked how they behaved in a particular manner or the type of questions they asked. On the other hand, some of the other students told me they wanted to copy some of the phrases I've used in my introduction because they really liked those. And I think all of us came out of this lesson knowing that there was something we had to improve and change. So very, very productive session. Now there will be more such practice sessions in the future, and actually there will be one coming up as well where we will be almost having a second session with the same client, so that I wonder how it will go actually when the client comes for the second time and you need to revise what's been discussed before and kind of keep going on. So let's see, and now again I'll share it in this channel. So I hope you enjoyed today's session. Please continue following this channel, leave your comments, like the video. I hope you do like it. And please take good care of yourself. I'll see you next week. Bye bye.